Hey everyone, welcome to the last video in this series. So we're going to wrap things up by creating a little project, creating a little game. We're basically going to make a guessing game. So we're going to randomly pick a number and give the user a certain number of tries to guess the correct number. If they run out of guesses, they lose. If they guess it correctly before they run out of guesses, then they win. So anytime you do a project, you want to write it down, make it more explicit, right? So our goal again is to make a guessing game. And this is what we'll do. We'll randomly pick a number. We'll give users a few tries to guess the number. If they get it right, they win. If they run out of turns, they lose. Nice and simple. When you make it explicit like this, it reinforces what you're doing, right? And it also makes it easier to program later on. So we have a little high-level plan here. We know that we can use this random.randint function to pick a random number. Okay, I've shown you how to use that function. And if you forgot, you can simply Google it so you can look at the description again. We also have this input function, and we can use that to get the user's guess. I've shown you how to use that. And we can use a while loop, right? I've shown you how to use that to continue to ask the user for guesses until they run out of guesses, right? Okay, now that we have our plan, let's go ahead and give it a try. And any problems that we encounter, we'll fix them along the way. So I plan on, first of all, let's import random. We're going to need that randint function. I plan on putting all this code in a function so that we can call it again and again to play the game repeatedly. So I'm going to call this play a game. And basically, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pick a random number, right? Random.randint. We're going to make it 1 through 10. So we're going to pick a random number between 1 and 10. We're going to initialize a guess. We're going to make that -1, and you'll quickly see why. Okay, I'll explain that. Initially, we'll guess -1, which is obviously not any number between 1 and 10. And then n tries. This stands for number of tries. How many tries we give the player. We're going to give him 5. All right, so now we're going to use our while. We're going to, while the player hasn't guessed correctly, we want to keep on asking him to guess, basically. So while guess does not equal, so this is the syntax for doing does not equal. So while guess in Python and most other languages, this is how you do an inequality. So while the guess does not equal the picked number, right? Oh, and he still has tries. So number tries is greater than 0. So I hope this condition makes sense. We're checking really 2 conditions here. And I'm kind of sneaking in another construct for you guys. It's this end construct. And the end basically is how you use 2 conditions in a place that requires a condition, like a while or an if. It's not a big deal. It sounds exactly like what it reads like, honestly. So while the guess isn't correct and the player still has some tries, we want to do a couple things. First of all, we want to ask him, we want to update this guess variable. We want to ask him to guess. So remember how we get input from the user. We're going to tell him to, let's be a little nice here and ask him kindly. So please guess. And we're going to store basically the guess in this guess variable. Okay. And if this guess is equal to pick, so if he guessed it correctly, then we want to print you win. But otherwise, so if he didn't guess correctly, we want to do a couple things. We want a number of tries. We want to decrease that by 1 because he should have 1 less try. And also, if the tries has now reached 0, we want to print you lose. So let's go head over this and see if it makes sense. So this play game function, we use the randint function to randomly pick a number. And then we basically give the player a number of tries. And we set this guess variable initially to something wrong because we want to initially execute all of this code, right? So while the player has not guessed it correctly and he still has some tries left, and initially he hasn't guessed it correctly because he hasn't even guessed by the time we're here. So anyways, I hope that makes sense. So while he hasn't guessed it correctly and he still has some tries, we want to ask him to guess. We want to use the input function to get that guess, put it in this variable. If he then guessed it correctly, we want to print you win. Otherwise, we want to decrease the number of tries that he has and print you lose if the number of tries is 0. Okay, so we've defined the function. Let's go ahead and see how it does, and we'll fix any errors. So we'll do play game. So it's asking us for a guess. We'll guess. I'll go in order. I'm boring. 1, nope. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh my gosh, I lose. All right, let's try it again. Play game. So I guess I'll try it again. 1, 3, 5, 7. Are we ever gonna win? 9. You lose. I'll try it one more time. I'm gonna be suspicious if I keep on losing this. We'll do 3, 4. Okay, I'm a little confused here because I keep losing. I shouldn't be. Oh, okay, I see a problem here. Okay, guys, so basically here when we're getting the input, right, the input function returns a string. The string 3 will never be equal to the number 3. So basically we will never win. Now, you know, this is part of programming. You kind of have to think about what you may have gone wrong. And you know, since I'm so experienced, I was able to see that right away. But if you're newer, you may have to like go through this line by line to see that. So let's quickly go ahead and fix that function, right? I can do Alt P to bring up my previously typed stuff. So I'm going to redefine this function. I'm going to keep everything the same, except I'm going to take this input, which is a string, and I'm going to convert it to an integer. And this is the syntax for doing that. You just surround it with a call for the int operation that will convert it. So let's go ahead and now play game. So let's guess 1, let's guess 2, let's guess 3, 4, let's guess 5. Okay, let's try it one more time. 1, if I get it, whoa, okay, one more time. If I get it wrong too many times, it's probably not correct. All right. There we go. Okay, so now it is working. Finally, we win. It's just, you know, I was just not guessing the correct thing. So this function works correctly. Okay guys, so I do apologize for messing up a couple times, but again, it's super easy for me to re-record this, but I think you do kind of gain a more realistic picture of programming if I don't do that. Because you will make mistakes, and you know, the more experience that you get, the faster you get at finding out those mistakes. And that's really all there is to it, guys. That's the end of this series. If you have any questions, or if you want things that if there are things that you want me to expand on, just go ahead and leave a comment. I'll strongly consider them. But basically, let's go ahead and do yet another recap of the entire series. So we started by saying that programming is all about telling the computer what to do. Usually you want it to do something useful, but sometimes you just want it to do something fun, like games, basically what we did here. Now, the most basic way, or the computer comes with some basic instructions that it is able to do, like add, subtract, multiply, and divide. We combine these instructions to create more and more complex instructions of our own, which we tend to call functions. And you can basically reuse functions that other people have written. Some of them are included with your programming environment, like the print function or the input function of Python, and some of them you go ahead and download from the internet. So you share these big complex functions, right? We also covered the fact that one of the most basic things you want to do with a computer is store some information in it, some data. We call that data values. And then you want to manipulate those values or data. You want to do some operations on them. Remember that these values or data have different types, and the type determines the operations that you can do on them. Also remember that There are several different syntaxes that programming languages provide for you to apply operations onto data. I showed you that the plus, the minus, I showed you how to call functions on data. So we load up the computer with some data, we name that data, that's what we call variables, and then we operate on that data, whatever syntax that we use. We also have a way to make decisions. This is also known as branching. So based on the input that comes to us or based on certain conditions, we can do different things. We use the if statement for that. And we also have a way of repeating ourselves because computers are very good at doing the same thing over and over again or doing something that's slightly different over and over again. We tied all of this together by making two little projects, I guess. One was the little composition thing that printed a box that we did, and the final one was this game that sort of tied everything together, this guessing game. So that's it for this tutorial series. I hope that you got I hope this was informative to you. I think that this presents the core concepts of what programming is all about. It's not about the syntax or anything, and I know I explained the syntax to you guys as well, but that's because I'm showing you code. I kind of have to. But I also made sure to let you know that it wasn't important. The important concepts really were the fact that you were loading this computer with some data and then manipulating that data. You were building bigger and bigger instructions, and you're using those instructions with some decision making and some repeating to create something fun or useful. That's what I want to stress. If you guys show more interest, or if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to expand on these videos. But for now, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in one of my future videos, whether it be another video in this series or in one of the other series that I'm making.